just be recording. Okay, so let me know. What brought you to Dress for Success initially as a client?
Yeah, I was referred here by one of your referral agencies, and I was going through a really hard time, and I had been homeless for a year almost, and in and out of, I didn't have any stable housing for about a year, and I was referred to you guys, and I came in, and my initial meeting was with Tracy, who I immediately recognized and was like so excited, and we did an incredible fitting, and I got some great clothing and just a sense of just feeling like my old self. You know, I had a job and a life, and a lot of people don't really understand how things like that happen to someone, but like many people who experience homelessness, there were severe mental health struggles, depression, anxiety that I battled for years, and it all just kind of came to a head, and I got here and I got my outfits, and immediately I began volunteering, and just to kind of get what it felt like to start working again. I'd already knew that I wanted to volunteer first, but like doing, coming to Dress for Success, I kind of had the clothes to fit the part. Like I remember my first day volunteering, I was like really insecure because I didn't feel like I fit into where I was. And then I came here and got clothes that made me like feel really confident about going in there. Eventually, I was able to get housing, and before long, probably within a matter of 2 months, I was hired on at my current job, which is an on-air personality on a local station called Life Songs. And it's been something that I've enjoyed doing since after college, but I never really believed in myself enough that it would turn into like a job, like a real job. And I walked into that interview with a bag and shoes that I got from here and nailed it. And I've been there ever since. And so I knew that I enjoyed so much my experience here in fashion and styling, but like just how important like this organization was to that process has not left me. It has not and then coming here and like watching the video, it's just even further like imprinted like how important something like this is for women who've been in my position. And a lot of people don't think that. They look at me and they're like, there's no way, there's no way. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh yes way, it was a real reality for me. So it's great. It's great. It's something that I know a lot of women that I come across who have gone through very difficult things can't often really see themselves in this type of clothing. They don't see. And I remember that for a lot of my life, even though I had like real jobs, I just never wanted to put on clothes that really reflected the work that I was doing. And that comes from a real deep place, from sadness and depression. So I think even more so, the clothes, like you guys talk about, it's about the way that you change somebody's way that they view themselves, that you deserve to look nice. You deserve to dress the part. You deserve to show up and feel comfortable. And you can still be yourself. My story is a real part of who I am. It's not something that I have to disclose at every moment of time, but it is like me being vulnerable and telling people that I've been there, I've gone through that, especially not women, you know what I mean? Young women, old women, whoever, and all in between, that I've been there. Like I really have been there, and that this is not the end for you, that you have options. For me, is a very deeply spiritual connection to my faith and what I believe is to come out of having like faith in possibilities, and faith in what can be accomplished, and just a lot of people don't really even know about organizations. Like, you hear about it, but the idea of being able to like really connect in is like, oh, it's just some clothes. It's like, no, there's so many more resources here. Like, I even attended one of the digital media classes, and that kind of stuff, which I think just paid huge dividends. Like, my job now, I have to use so much like technology and things that I probably for a large portion just really shied away from. You don't want to be in media. You don't want to be seen. You don't want, you want to kind of hide yourself, and, having the confidence through like education to just be brave and to show up, and like, you don't have to hide. Like, I'm not trying to hide. I'm from this city, I'm born and raised New Orleans girl. So to talk about my story is hard. It is not easy for people who are like, who I went to high school with, who I went to college with, people who still live here, and to have that like sort of stain of like homelessness. And at this point, honestly, I don't care, because now it's really just a testimony and a story of redemption, so talk all you want, what I mean? I'm doing the job of my dreams, and now I'm like helping people, so it doesn't matter to me. So, yeah.
That is such an amazing story.
Yeah, it's true though, but thank you, thank you.
And I completely agree that we don't talk about the invisible shield of poverty and how prevalent it is, because it's not talked about.
Correct.
Or once you make it out, you don't share about that part of your life.
Right.
But it's so real, and especially with like, you can be stable one moment and something can happen
completely, and
you're suddenly struggling.
I was one moment living like on Esplanade Avenue in New Orleans, and then like 3 months later, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was without a home. Like, that is how quickly something like that can happen to you when you are not in the right space mentally, when you don't have the proper support around you, where you just feel very alone. Like, it can happen. It's similar to like people who experience homelessness as a result of a storm or any kind of natural disaster. That's actually how it happens in real life. It's not like you're sitting there and you're like, oh, well, I could, no, it's one day, it's like, almost at the turn, and then you find yourself there, and homelessness is so there's so many levels to it on how you get out. It's not about just having a job. It's not about just there are legitimate like difficulties and personal barriers on how you manage life when you don't have a stable place, the things that actually happen to you on an emotional level when you don't have a stable place to live. You could still be working, but if there's no place for you to go home to at night, it just becomes this cycle, compounded cycle. And I love how you put the invisible shield, because most people try to just pretend like, oh, that never happened. But if you do that, there's really no there's no way for you to really heal from it, because running away from it is not going to be the solution. But I think ultimately the goal is to help other people, because we are here to inspire and to remind other individuals that it's real. It's real. Like, it's real, but there is a way out, because there are times where you think that it's gonna last forever. After a year of me experiencing that, I was, I remember being at a point where I just thought that this was gonna be something that I was gonna have to endure for the rest of my life, and it's not the case. And that there are people who want to help, and that there are organizations who can really put the pieces in place to see you through it, because you can't do it on your own. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I think that a lot of people think that is a possibility, but you have to reach out, you have to be persistent, you have to get treatment, you have to see doctor, you have to have all that covered. It's a real rebuilding from like bottom up,
And you don't even, it's not just that you can't do it alone, it's you don't have to.
You don't have to.
And seeing you here to be another support system for these people that are sometimes coming in from your same point of view, or with different, like you said, multiple layers to homelessness.
Right.
But that shared, everyone who comes to the store comes needing something or reaching out for help. And
right.
So I am curious, you mentioned volunteering after you had gotten a little more stable, some housing. Did you start volunteering immediately with Dress for Success, or did you start other areas?
No, I was actually volunteering at a pro bono law clinic. You know, it was always something that I kind of do things that there's somebody kind of explained it to me when it comes to volunteering in fields where you find you're hurt. Like, that's the thing where you can be the most impactful. Like therapy, I heard it, which is important. It's sort of like addition, but when you take my negative experiences with your negative experience, it becomes multiplication. And I utilize the things that I learned, you know, and my experience to help people who have gone through similar situations.
It definitely turns that negative experience to something that, well, at least it has use for someone else.
Right,
like, there's a lesson here.
And it feels really cliche, Chloe. Like, I've heard it before, but it is so not cliche. Like, in the midst of going through a trial, a serious situation, if you use what you're going through to help somebody else, it is like a dynamic, like multi-fold return on your investment. I think it was that decision to do that. I've always loved to volunteer, but I was kind of doing things like they talked about today, you know, like food bank, you know, and those things are great, but it wasn't anything that really struck a chord with me. I think when you actively choose volunteer situations that resonate truly with who you are, the impact and the return on that, like, investment of, you know, volunteer, which essentially you working for free. You know what I mean? It's not really, because you are getting and giving so much from that situation. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing.
It's true though, but it's true. It really is. I feel, you know, a lot of stuff sounds good, but I'm living in a moment of like, what can I do? For me, it was just like, I don't want to think, you know, like there's a point in time when you don't want to continue to process all of it. You know, like, what can I do to not bury it under a rug, but also like use the things that I've been through in a beneficial way. And I think if everybody, you know, who's going through difficulties, and even those who aren't, are trying to, I just heard this, trying to use like really difficult experiences and try to put them in places where they're helping somebody else who has dealt with that, it really starts to give you a different perspective. I had a lot of anger, I had a lot of, you know, blame, a lot of all this kind of stuff that I was dealing with on how I ended up where I was, and it really just transformed, you know, my thought process on the situation. It allowed me to come from a place of compassion, a place of empathy, a place of forgiveness, instead of this sort of feeling like, and don't get me wrong, a lot of people who experience homeless have been victimized, but if you want to not stay in that place of being a victim and want to turn into like a victor, I feel like the direct route of doing that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And for me, this isn't the end. Like, this is me working my way and processing, like, you know, Dress for Success was a critical part, I think, involving myself with homeless populations, and for people to like really see that, you know, my background probably would not suggest that I would have ever been through what I've been through. Some ways it actually does, you know, depending on who you ask. But the point of that is to say that it doesn't matter what your background is. You know what I mean? We all are human, and we have life experiences, and we all go through like really difficult things. But, you know, we can do them. We can. Yeah.
I love that. I think one of my favorite parts of Dress for Success New Orleans is that anyone who walks through that door, we're not asking like, well, what brought you here? Why are you here? Right. It's more, what do you need? How can we be there for you? And oftentimes, because a suiting takes some time trying on clothes and finding what makes you feel confident in there, sometimes stories reveal itself, and people confide in you because they're seeing such support.
Absolutely.
And so just that element of, you might have been through something and you might have not, but we're not going to define you by that.
No,
we're going to make we're going to support you in whatever future you want, not what we define as success.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
I think that's instrumental.
That's incredibly important, because I know women and men too, individuals who may find themselves homeless may have experienced a lot of things that it's not water cooler talk is what I call it. They're not things that you really want to talk, discuss in any situation, and you get sort of this stain and this sort of idea of who you are, but that's not who you are. Mm-hmm. That's what you experienced. That's what you did a lot of times just to survive. I don't think people understand what real survival means and the type of things that people have to do in order to survive, especially when they're homeless. And survival is not anything we should ever ridicule. We don't ridicule animals about it, so we would not hold any actual human accountable for choices that they make while they survive. And I think it's really important to express to especially women, because that's who we deal with at Dress for Success, that what you did to survive is not anything to discredit who you are as a person. It has nothing to do with your character. It has nothing to do with who you are. And it definitely has no impact on who you can become. You survived and now you're here, so what can we do for you,
Very, very true. Yeah. And one thing I want to focus more on is how Dress for Success had a long-lasting impact. It wasn't just the shooting.
No.
Can you speak a little bit to that endurance of after just our appointment, what that can do?
It reminded me of who I was. As a little girl, I loved shopping. I loved going with my mom to pick out stuff beginning of the school year. And then, it really sort of started to just trigger all these positive experiences. You get into a space where you're just only thinking about the negative and things that have happened to you, but it really turned on so many of these oh man, I really did enjoy this kind of stuff, and oh yeah, this was great, because again, you get caught up in the space of not thinking great about yourself and how did I get here and all that kind of stuff. So this has had beyond long lasting. I did not even remember. I knew I could. I'm oh yeah, I think I could put an outfit together, and try to show up and look nice. But it had been so long since I had, I had a son. I have a son who had mental health challenges, cognitive issues, and so working in the traditional sense of working was not an option for me for a really, really long time. So. And even when I did, when in his early years, I still wasn't in a place where I was trying to show up. It was kind of I'm trying to be a mom, and then I know I have to go to work. So it was I really wasn't even then putting together the pieces of this person who liked to get up and present myself in a way and look nice and do all those things. I was just showing up to work. Hopefully I had some pants on that day, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this sort of triggered so much of, it doesn't have to be fashion or styling or anything, but it triggered I like to organize stuff, you know what I mean? I like to see things in their place. I like, just, it reminded me of all those things, which it's easy to forget, we have to grow up. But a lot of times we forget about those small joys. We have on the station that's called Moment of Joy, where we're doing all summer, just small things that kind of bring, just that positivity to your day. And so oftentimes, as you grow up and you experience things, or just being adult and adulting, you forget things that you actually really like to do. And myself, especially enduring depression and anxiety, there was a time where I literally, people are what do you like to do? And I'm I couldn't come up with one thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. I could not come up with a single one thing to that question, which is really sad, So coming here really reminded me of who I was and things that I really enjoyed, Yeah. I think the classes even, I like educating myself. All those things that I just sort of took for granted and just couldn't really pinpoint for a really long time. This was extremely long lasting. Yeah.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
I think even on I'm technically a volunteer or a summer intern working full-time here, and even though like I came in with this idea of, well, I'm not getting paid, I'm just helping out this organization, I realized I get so much back from this experience.
Right.
Like, I think we notice people coming in feeling hesitant for taking up our time or taking resources. I'm like, no, you don't realize it's such a return on our end.
Absolutely.
Of seeing you get to prosper, hearing these stories, hearing a woman say, like, this was the first experience that she had with shopping that she didn't cry at, or she didn't feel just excluded from.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think Lori, our executive director, shares similar stories of having another woman shared, like, this was the first choice she has been given in a couple years of like, there's all these clothing, you get to pick like what you want to look like. And we just want to make sure you are putting your best foot forward for wherever you want to go. And typically that's within the workplace, but whatever field that is for you, helping you lose another barrier, because that glass ceiling is so real for so many women, and especially Black women, which we predominantly serve, of that exclusion that people don't want to talk about.
Right.
But to get you the interview attire, the confidence, that long-lasting educational support, to hopefully like break those glass ceilings.
Preach, Chloe. Yes, girl.
And then maybe come back and share it with future clients. Like, we really rely on volunteers. We could not do it. We only have 2 staff members that are full-time employed.
Right.
And along with just like keeping the lights on and doing the financial aspect of having a nonprofit, our volunteers are instrumental. So it's so exciting to hear you talk about just the importance of like what you can gain from volunteering, and what you give in volunteering.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I could not have said any of that better. I think to know that there are people like you, like young women like you, who have that like really like 360 understanding of what like who your client is, and the burdens and the challenges that they come in here with is just so pivotal and so vital. I think that's just great. Like, I would sweep here, if there was what I mean? Like, that's how important it is. And
you're going to make me cry.
Seriously though, I think that, you come into you come out or a situation feeling the sense of unworthiness, and to come into a place that is as beautiful as this, that has, the clothes are actually really, really nice. You know what I mean? I just want to like transform the whole idea of like clothing that has been worn by somebody else. Like, I almost exclusively like do that now. You know what I mean? Like, more of my clothing, and not based off, I just found like, honestly, in my journey of like not having things that I'm like, why am I spending all this money?
Yeah.
And I could get stuff that's just as
and
nice.
help the environment, like, so many benefits.
So many benefits. But this organization has such a well-rounded thought process on how important a service like this is to the community. And, that open-hearted, like, what can we do? How can we serve you, is really what's needed when you walk into a place when you are feeling like nobody cares, that nobody really understands, like, we understand, I understand, you understand, we get it, for individuals who aren't used to having choices, who aren't used to given choices on what they should do or wear. It can be really, really overwhelming, where you can come here and like, you're not bothering me, please don't apologize. Take your time. Apologize. You get to be picky, you get to do all those things, and like, we want you to walk out of here feeling like this is you can do it. You can. This is what you deserve. That you deserve to be able to do things like this. When
I initially sought out Dress for Success New Orleans, it was because I'm one of 8 kids, and my mom had as a single mother with 8 kids, like had that moment where suddenly she was having a big house and a great job, and then the next she's wondering, like, will she ever get a job again?
Right.
Like, will people exclude based on her kids or her age or different things? So I definitely had personal attachment. I think you see a lot of volunteers have a personal attachment to why they're here.
Yeah.
But then there's some people that don't, and I think I want to leave off on, like, what advice you would give to someone that might be thinking about volunteering at Dress for Success.
There are a lot of options when it comes to volunteering. I find that volunteering in general is just a great thing to do, just as a human, across the board. But why you should choose Dress for Success is because if you want to see an organization that is making an impact for women who are the mothers, the nurturers, the foundation of our community in a lot of senses, this is the one that you want to come to. The statistics that you guys had in the video are as real as we can really make something like this about the how less likely women are to be employed because of responsibilities that we're assumed to take on in a household. And this organization is one that is helping to fight against that, to recognize that you can do it, but that this is a support. This is a place that we need support, and it's not something that shouldn't be perceived as weak or less than because you're reaching out to an organization. Whether you come from a background like myself where you've experienced homelessness, or you come from a background like your mom who found herself at a change of point in her life, or you find yourself like women who are in their later years who still want to be seen as productive, important members, and they are of society. Like, there's a space for you here. And the success rate, and I think just kind of knowing that you are part of Dress for Success is like, just a feather in your cap too, because it's really cool. Like, a lot of nonprofits, you can't, you never know, you never know, like, where somebody has volunteered, and it's really none of your business. But this is front facing, this is something that, like I said, I had my shoes on from here when I went there. this is something that is real palpable, this, you can really feel it's authentic. Yeah, it's really something you can see it put into place immediately,
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Of course.
This was so amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Your story, I'm going to have to take some time to process and really learn from, because I think you're totally right. I got to start volunteering more, or just taking up spaces where you can offer more because of your past.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
That pain into purpose. For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks,
oh my gosh, I want to give you a hug.